A Beautiful Moment reunites Simon Yam and Karina Lau for the first time since 1991's Gigolo and Whore. They probably don't want me to say that. Hi, welcome to the Silver Spleen. My name is Paul Bettany, and this is my review of A Beautiful Moment. Produced, directed, and written by Patrick Kong, the Mongkok Woody Allen. A Beautiful Moment tells the story of Michelle Y dating a man old enough to be her father. Why do you think I watched it? Well, that's not true. I watched it because I watch all the Chinese New Year movies. And I watch all the Patrick Kong movies. And I watch all the Michelle Y movies. And so, being Guhan, I got to see 3 movies for the price of 1. Suna. We now return you to my native language. I love Patrick Kong movies because they're always so easy to review. There are just so many things to notice, and they're the kind of things that I always react to. I know I'm not alone in feeling this way, because Patrick Kong has a loyal audience that always enjoys his movies. Okay, I might be alone in that way. But let me try to be fair. Actually, I don't even have to try to be fair about A Beautiful Moment. Not because it's a great film, but because it's a Chinese New Year film. Traditionally, Chinese New Year films are family-centered comedies featuring lots of cameos from different movie stars, and there's always an ending where everything turns out okay, and there's lots of silliness and wacky jokes and overacting, you know. And on that level, A Beautiful Moment is a great Chinese New Year film, and I'm not being even a little sarcastic. It might even be my favorite holiday film of the year, if only because it's so traditional. It even features the New Year's greetings from the cast at the end, which a lot more movies used to do. I enjoy Chinese New Year as a holiday for a lot of different reasons, but one of them is that I know Chinese New Year movies are meant to be outrageous and silly and oversimplified and not necessarily concerned with absolute perfection in film. Now, I realize that sounds like a setup to take yet another jab at Patrick Kong. It could be, but it isn't. Or maybe it isn't, but it could be. The opening scene of the film takes place during a mahjong game. It features Steffi Tang, Karina Lau, Nancy Sit, and Nina Pa. The punchline of the scene's big joke was easier to see coming than Godzilla on a 3-day drunk, but it lets the credits go by without having to read them, and it's a mahjong scene in a movie, so I didn't mind. Now, if I was Steffi Tang, I might mind being put in a scene with 3 women old enough to be my mother. Is Patrick Kong being catty? I don't care, because it's Chinese New Year. There's no point trying to talk about the story in A Beautiful Moment, because A, there's so many subplots it would take an hour. B, I'm being generous calling them subplots, but never mind. And C, the big reveal of the movie is actually made plain in both the movie's Chinese title and the trailer. I think that might be the most economy of narrative I've ever seen, and I'm honestly impressed. So I'd rather talk about the movie itself and the people in it. One reason that this movie is so watchable is because it features Karina Lau and Simon Yam. Simon is still a fixture on local screens, but Karina Lau is nowhere near as ubiquitous as she once was, and we are all worse off for it. Watching 2 veterans glide through a movie is a pleasure to watch, and I don't mean in any way that they're sleepwalking, because they aren't. They're just so good that they make it look easy to be that good. And it's not. Just ask Michelle Y. She's convincing out of all proportion to the rest of this entire film. She convinced me that she really loved Simon Yam's character. She convinced me in the action scene, which is no small feat. If you watch it, you'll see what I mean. She even convinced me in the scene where she's drunk. That level of acting is not on universal display among the cast members of her generation, or the actors of her generation, but let's try to keep it positive, right? On the positive side, Alex Fong and Ivana Wong are very entertaining as a couple of APA graduates willing to do anything to jumpstart their acting careers. One of the subplots features Lo Hoi Pang, Lo Lan, and Simon Lui in a horror story, and it was a lot of fun to watch. So was Philip Keung Ho Man chewing up scenery with gleeful abandon and a wardrobe to die for. Besides, his subplot gives us a cameo from Cai Yin, and there's gambling involved. So that alone is well worth the price of admission. Also making a cameo is MC Jin, who makes the most out of a short appearance, and I personally hope he shows up in more movies more often. Bob Lam and Jacqueline Chong provide still more evidence that among the Patrick Kong stable of talent, they more than anyone else deserve their own feature film. I could watch those two people bicker for days. They're funny, sharp, and so convincing that I'm beginning to suspect that they don't like each other in real life, and that would be sad. I hope not. And speaking of not, Louisa Mack proves yet again that just because you were Miss Hong Kong doesn't mean you can act more convincingly than a houseplant. And at least a houseplant shows signs of having a pulse and a brain. Oh dear, such negativity is really not very festive. So because it's the holidays, I'll stop. Think of it as my gift to you. Not you, Louisa, put that down. Where were we? Patrick Kong has created a truly wonderful Chinese New Year film. I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to, and I think the reason I did was simply because it's Chinese New Year. I was in a holiday mood, and this is a holiday movie, so it worked, and I'm grateful, I really am. I liked this movie so much, I didn't even mind the Jim Chim cameo. Maybe because it was just a cameo, but I'm not going to be negative. I didn't even mind the cameo by that nonsense peddler, Mak Ling Ling. Or the totally unnecessary epilogue featuring Joey Young. Because when Emperor does movies, their stars get promoted, whether it has any relation to the story or not. Gong hei fa choi, dai lo. I didn't even mind the other, perhaps even more unnecessary epilogue about an audition for a local remake of La La Land. By the Mongkok Woody Allen, of course, as a director who thankfully doesn't appear as himself. I know I built whatever reputation I may have on being negative, and I've beaten up on Patrick Kong for about 5 years now, and perhaps have done it more often or more thoroughly than I should have. If Barbara Wong was as prolific as Patrick Kong, I'd probably go a lot easier on him. Because if Barbara Wong was that prolific, I'd have died of a stroke by now. But never mind. And you know, if Patrick Kong wants to do cameos in his own movies, I don't mind. Probably because he's not Barbara Wong. I really enjoyed A Beautiful Moment precisely because it's a Patrick Kong movie. And because he made a very funny and very traditional Chinese New Year film. And as odd as it sounds, I can't tell you how much I appreciated the traditional greetings at the end of the movie. Tradition doesn't mean old. It means something that people still do, that they've done for a long time, and you kind of hope that they don't stop doing it. So I hope Patrick Kong makes a Chinese New Year movie every year. I don't know which of us is more surprised that I enjoyed this movie as much as I did, you or me, but I did enjoy it, and I can easily recommend it because it's a lot of fun to watch, especially during Chinese New Year. And I realize my review comes kind of late in the season, but I was very busy this holiday season, and I apologize. But if you want to watch this movie, go see it in a cinema. Otherwise, wait until you can rent it or buy a copy. Do not steal this film. When it gets released to home video, I'll update the description with a link where you can legitimately buy a copy. If you like the thought of spending money on movies or on people who talk about movies, you could always click on my Patreon page. Because for a very small amount of money, you can make a very big difference in my life. And that would mean a lot to me. If you enjoyed my review, please let me know. And if you didn't, please let me know. If you like the channel, please subscribe. And one last thing before I go, Gong hei fa choi.